Hello, good morning,
Good
good evening. I got confused. Our background is a little bit fuzzy. Wow, looks like we're like super laggy.
Yeah,
Oh man.
it's our internet.
Okay, sorry everyone. I'm gonna try to fix that while Sarah talks to you for a minute. You have anything? Welcome everyone. Wow, good to see everyone after another week. How's everyone's week been? Say hello. Good to see you all. I'm spacing out how to do this actually, but that's okay.
You always do that. You got it. Ooh, can they see?
Yeah, they see it.
Yeah.
It's pretty funky. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Okay. I think we're good. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah, we have an exciting evening planned for you tonight.
My favorite topic.
Favorite topic? You want to spoil? I guess we told them already.
Relationships.
Yes. Love and relationships. We're not going to bore you with our whole story again like we did a year ago. We're approaching almost the 1 year. We're approaching the 1 year Live from the Bunker anniversary.
Oh my gosh, that's a big deal.
Pretty big deal.
We should do something big. What should we do for that?
It's a great question. I don't know.
Should we go in person?
Yes, we should just go in person. That's right.
Hi, Charlie. Hi, Ben. Thanks for joining us, guys.
So hot in here.
I feel like the heat's been overworking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't ever just feel empty at the end of a busy day. Yeah, but we have a really exciting class planned for you. Danny had some cool stuff he wanted to share, but bedtimes are a little bit in the making. So he's just taking care of that, stepping up. But any of you who have taken classes with me before probably know that this is my all-time favorite topic. And I really weave it into any class if I can. And we bring in different ideas and talk about it because I feel like we just can't talk about it enough. It's so much in the forefront of our lives. Relationships with anyone this could apply to, and also with that significant other. So hopefully tonight can just help shed some light. The society we live in has so many ideals and preconceived notions, and I'm multitasking. Anyways, but so much of what we see from society around us today is not a reflective of Jewish values, and our values are actually very different, and maybe some of those ways that they differ can come up in our class tonight. I know in one of my college classes recently, the bride and I were just talking about one of these, and hopefully we'll get to touch on it tonight. And
can you tell them
live on Instagram. Yeah, what's up?
What is a college class?
Oh, college class. Okay. So someone's writing a bunch of comments and just
can I explain what college class?
Yeah, we're gonna take it from the positive perspective. Okay, so college classes are when a couple gets married and they start this new chapter of their lives. There's a lot new going on. There's a lot of newness. There's different Jewish things that we do. There's different, also just maintaining the relationship, and it's different relationship, and how to keep it for the long haul. What do you want to just explain in simple terms what a college class is?
So, the way I think about it is that we spend, 18 years of school learning about rocks, really, the igneous rock, and then the metamorphic rock, and then you learn all kinds of fun things about rocks and graphs, like where the slope is and how to calculate the slope. In my career, I've never encountered rocks or slopes. Now, that might be weird, but one thing that you spend a lot of time on is love, marriage. That's a big part of life, and sometimes we don't invest the time to learn how to be a good spouse.
Can I just pause for a moment, because it is just such a strong point. I think that we spend our whole lives preparing for a career, And it's not always our career that brings us our true fulfillment and the highest degree of happiness in our lives. And relationships are super important, but school doesn't really prepare us for that. There's all through school, and then there's college, and there's grad school maybe, and but where are we learning about how to have a successful relationship?
Right. So that's kind of what we do sometimes is when people get engaged, Sarah and I will learn with the bride and the groom, and we go over, those topics really, how to do that. So that's what college classes are.
And thankfully, because of this eternal because of this eternal wisdom that we have from the Torah, there's so much depth and there's so much good advice that we can apply in our relationships. And I just feel so fortunate to have access to it and to be able to give it over, because I really think that it's so valuable.
That's right. And Frank's asking if you can't sing and dance like the rabbi, you can still be a good person. Not everyone can do that. I'm actually looking to maybe drop my first rap tomorrow or something.
This is the perfect segue.
So yeah, a little. I'm thinking about dropping my first rap song with a good friend of mine. Stay tuned.
You may just have to check Facebook every hour.
We're just going to leave it at that. I don't know if it'll be released tomorrow, but the recording might be tomorrow. We're trying to get it in time actually for our annual campaign, which is going to happen next week, Sunday and Monday. Get ready. You'll hear from us. And we'd love for you to join us. So, Shira, thank you. Can't wait for the rap. Yeah, it's coming.
It's going to be epic.
It will be. It will be great. So there's more that came from. Yes, absolutely. Take the day off. Just sit by your computer, anxiously waiting for my track to explode. That's what I would do, like Fiddy. Okay. Okay.
What you do about this?
I don't know. The kids need us, but
ask her what she needs and come tell me. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But you should go now. Okay, sweetheart. Bye. You're very cute, but it's time to go now.
Should I go?
Yeah, I guess so. Okay. Fine. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and actually, Sarah was going to take the lead tonight on the class. I was going to just sit here and look pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and, I guess introduce the topic a little bit more. Just to elaborate on what we just said, that we do spend all this time in our life preparing for careers and not that much time preparing on how to be a good spouse. But the reality is that's very not simple how to do that. And it's very important. I will just say one quick tip before Sarah gets back here is there's a book that if you haven't read it yet, if you're kind of in the parsha, you're thinking about one day and entering these waters, is what I view as like mandatory reading, is like life-changing. And it's called The 5 Love Languages. Let me know if you've heard of The 5 Love Languages before. Just go ahead and you can say in the chat if you've heard of that. But to me, it's like a total life-changing topic. Because the problem is that a lot of times, when people, because maybe they never learned about these things, they don't know, there's often a challenge in communication between husband and wife, between one and their spouse. And sometimes, if I would go to Israel, for example, and I would order a falafel, let's say in southern Israel, and no one speaks English over there. Luckily in Denver, we have, yes, Shira knows about it, amazing. Charlie knows of it, amazing. But if I would go down, actually on Tuesdays at the Jewish Experience, we have a falafel truck by Morty. You should all check it out. He's amazing. I had one today. But let's just say I went to Israel in the south and I wanted to order a falafel, but I didn't want the spicy stuff. So I go down there. I'm this like average like American dude, and I'm just like, "Hello, Habibi. Hello, my friend." I'm just stalling. Hello, my friend. I want a falafel, but no spicy. And then the annoyed like Israeli dude from the south, he's like, "Mato me, maze shtuyot. Ani lo medaber Anglit. Ze shtuyot maze. Lama mimet. Lama mimet."
I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Lama makara. Right? So he's gonna look at me. I'm like, "No, my dude, I just want a falafel, brother. Just give me a falafel." And he's like, lama, maza. There's like falafel, no spicy. Now I'm talking louder and louder. But he's talking louder and louder, but we're not hearing each other. Why? Because I speak English and he speaks Hebrew.
I was so wondering where.
Yeah. So if I'm speaking English and he's speaking Hebrew, are we going to hear each other? Are we going to connect? No. Why? Because you can only connect with a person. Near, I'm only talking about like a theoretical dude in the South, but there is a guy in Denver named Morty Nissenbaum who has a falafel truck, which is the real deal. It's like legit. Okay. Anyway, so in my theoretical case, like we're not hearing each other because I don't speak the language that the Israeli falafel guy speaks, and he doesn't speak the language I speak. The same is true, says Gary Chapman, brilliant, of love. There's love languages also. And my love language might be, as some of you are alluding to, words of affirmation. When I get home from work and Sarah says, Danny, you are looking swell. Did I ever tell you the reason I married you is because you're so good looking? I cannot believe how blessed I am to have married such a talented, good-looking person like you. Like, I feel loved when I hear that. That like warms my heart. I feel the warm fuzzies when I hear that. Yes. Okay. And I love that. Okay. And let's say I tell her the same thing. And I say, Sarah, you are the love of my life. I wrote you a poem. I'm going to read it to you. Roses are red. My eyes are blue. You're really beautiful. I love you. Right? It's nice, but I'm missing something, right? Because her love language is not that. Her love language is this thing called acts of service. So if I go ahead and I do the dishes, for her, or I take out the trash, then she gets the warm fuzzies. And if she does that for me, I don't get the warm fuzzies. So in other words, the problem is, and I'm just stalling. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah here in a minute. I'm just summarizing for a minute, okay? So the problem is that we tend to speak the language. I'm sorry. We tend basically to just express the language that we feel or that we absorb. So I understand English, so I speak English. So in the falafel story, I'm speaking English louder because that's what I hear, but he doesn't hear that. So if I feel love through compliments and words of affirmation, it's very natural. I would tell you words of affirmation and compliments, and I would expect you to feel loved. But if the way that you feel loved is through acts of service, you're not going to feel loved, but you're going to do acts of service to me, and I'm not going to feel loved. So you have a situation where we deeply love each other, but we don't feel like we love each other because we're not communicating to each other that we love each other.
Because the communication is exactly what you're doing, and it's going like that.
Right. We're missing each other. So check out that book. I discovered this book, I think, like 4 or 5 years into our marriage, and like I felt like I knew a lot about marriage and love, like after 4 or 5 years. But that book was like, that thing was amazing. It's just so brilliant. So if you haven't read it,
Jewish version.
Yeah, he worked with like some rabbis and like they made it more Jewish. Yeah. So
the Jewified it?
I don't know if that's like politically correct, but it's it was an awesome book, and for more, check it out. The key though is to speak the language that your beloved speaks. You have to be on the same language, because this is the last point. We have here a bottle of kombucha, okay? And let's just say that this bottle is what he calls my love tank, okay? My love tank. So if my love tank is empty because I'm never feeling like loved, how am I going to express love? It's going to be very hard if I'm feeling empty to go ahead and express any kind of love. So our job is to fill each other's love tanks to the top. That's it. Okay, I'm turning it over. Thank you. I think I did a good job.
You did great.
Okay,
thank you.
Excellent. But before we begin, I'm sorry, one more thing. Just let me know if you're one of the hundreds of people watching now, if you're familiar with a very brief version of the Pickle Story and how we met. Because sometimes we get new viewers over the years, so maybe you didn't see this last time. Because if you haven't seen it, we would say it over again. But if you saw it, we're not going to bore you. We'll just refer you back to season 1, episode 1. Okay. So you just put in the chat like, yes, I know the story, or no, I don't know the story. That's it. Just write in the chat. Let us know, and we'll get to it. In the meantime, why don't you take it away while while Facebook catches up to real time.
There's really so much to talk about. This is just an introduction and a starting point. I was actually learning with someone today, and she wanted to learn about dating and relationships. And I said, that's great. We can learn about dating and relationships, but let's take a step back, because actually, I could almost show a picture. The perfect example of this is I took my 3-year-old to the park the other day, and there's this huge slide. There's this new park we don't usually go to. Huge slide, and the only way to get to it has all these ropes, and you have to climb these ropes. And she's 3, and this was not built for a 3-year-old. But she really wants to get up to the slide, and she's determined. So she's trying to climb the ropes. And she climbs through a couple times in different directions, and she comes down, and she gets up, and she tries again. So then I tell her, I say, put your hands where you want to be going. Okay? So now she understands that to climb the ropes effectively, you can't just put your feet where you want to go. You have to actually know in what direction you want to go and lead yourself with your hands. And that implies even before that, you need to figure out how do you get to the slide? What part of this whole ropes course takes you up to the slide? And then we talked about what was next. How do you get there? Okay, if you know where you want to be going, right, you put your hands in that direction, but sometimes you have to reanalyze what's the best way to get there. And it's not over that big hole maybe you have to go through. Or and the other thing is watch your step, watch where you're going. You have to pay attention. So I think these concepts could be applied to anything and everything in life. We have to have a goal, and then we have to know how to get there. And it was cute. We went back today to the park with her older brother, and they're climbing it together. And she's telling him, put your hands where you want to go. Remy, put your hands. This is just so cute. Okay, anyway, so I thought that was just an awesome life lesson. So we're taking a step back from dating and relationships, which I love talking about, and we're going to get to some points in that to talk about love. Because why are we dating? Why are we going into a relationship? I'm going to assume that it's for the sake of love, right? Yeah. And if love is a goal, then what is love? And what's not love? And how do I know what's what? And then we can talk about how to get there. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
And I will point out, I don't know if I told Sarah this, but the name of the class is that, I'm using it to hold up the phone. Okay. The name of the class is First Comes Love and Then Comes Marriage.
I was thinking that also.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's so funny.
So I want to address that at some point, because I think it's a bit of a misconception. And we'll try to get there. Okay.
Okay. The first thing I want to address is what comes up first, usually in a relationship, and this idea of infatuation or lust and chemistry. Right? As a dating coach, this comes up so much, right? Because two people are going out, and is there chemistry? A lot of the times things can line up on paper so well, but you have to really meet the person and see if there's going to be chemistry. So what is chemistry? I was listening to, and we can give you a whole list.
I know my calculus. It says you plus me equals us in together. Right? Remember that?
Yeah.
Youth? I know my. It was okay, sorry. That's chemistry.
So we'll give you a list of resources also if you want to know more. But one amazing one is on Instagram, Alana with an I and Jamie Cowland. They do, I don't know how often they come out with a new video about relationships, and they're phenomenal. There's always new ideas. Their most recent one actually talks about this, about beauty and chemistry, and how chemistry is so much. It's not just beauty. So you could look in a room, you could walk into a room, right? I feel like this happens all the time at our events also. You walk in and you look around. Actually, this is kind of how we met. You look around, at least on my side of it. Is there anyone who could be that person sitting in the room? And you don't always know, because what are you looking at? You're looking at exterior beauty. But what makes up chemistry beauty is part of it, but that's not all of it. When you put the exterior beauty together with the personality and so many other aspects and the values and the goodness of who the person is, then you can really determine chemistry. So my number one point for this idea is to give it time. It could take 9-10 dates for a couple to go out in order to determine if they have chemistry. And it's not like, and that, like, yeah, I'm just going to stop there.
Wow, I didn't realize there's that many.
Yeah, it could take one. Yeah. So give it time. There's actually a really good comparison. Hannah Levitan, here's another resource in a book. This is a phenomenal book. I Only Want to Get Married Once by Hannah Levitan. You can find it on Amazon. Actually, I think this is in the book, but it's also from an article she wrote for H.com. If you're making a fire, right? And the fire, how does a fire burn? Because it burns logs, right? Like someone came and collected from our tree because they wanted like logs and we were trying to get rid of it. So you need that for the fire. But how do you start a fire?
You light a match.
Yeah. And then what do you light? Do you light the log on fire? No. What else do you need?
Paper.
Yeah, paper. What else?
The match.
The match. You could use paper, twigs. When I went to camp, we used to use those like dried out pine needles. I don't know if they have those in Colorado. I don't know. But you use like those little things to catch it on fire. But then if it doesn't catch onto the log, the fire is going to burn out. But it can't just start catching to the log. So those little things, the twigs, the paper, those are infatuation. Infatuation has its place in the relationship. But if it stays an infatuation and it doesn't go deeper to catch fire on the logs, it's going to be done. It's going to end. Hi, Callie. Welcome. So I just thought that was like a really cool visual way to think about infatuation and its place within a relationship.
How does one know if what they're feeling is infatuation or something deeper?
Great question.
We didn't even like rehearse this. Like honestly, like
yeah,
literally, like we didn't do that.
No, not at all.
I was literally just practicing my rap before this. So
yeah. So there's actually a litmus test, and I forget what source I got this from, but it's from like this whole awesome curriculum.
Sorry, I was rapping in my head.
That's great. Okay. Are you in the relationship? Are you looking to get something out of the relationship? Or are you looking to give to the other person? And that is not the only way to tell, but that's one like test. If like you look at how you feel about the relationship, are you thinking about what you're getting or what you're giving? And that's just one way, like, is it lust or is it love? But I will say there to be careful, because when in giving in a relationship, and we're actually going to come back to this is a really important point, but I just want to like give a warning about like an unhealthy relationship is where a person is giving so much and like that giving isn't like just appreciated and like needed, but it's like desperate, like the person like. But on the other hand, we're going to talk about this idea of being taken advantage of, and that's like one of those areas where Western society definitely clashes with Judaism. So foreshadowing an awesome idea ahead. Okay, I just want to take a second because there's this awesome quote that I have here in my folder. It's from who is it from? It's from like a classic Michtav Meliyahu. It's a classic Jewish work on philosophy. And he says in this book, he says to couples at their wedding the following: take care to always wish, he says to them, like to them, right? Take care to always wish to bring joy and pleasure to each other as you do now. And be aware that the moment that you begin making demands on each other, happiness will escape you. So I think that just shows to the extent that the love is dependent upon the giving, not on the taking.
Yeah. And I mean, you're quoting Rav Eliyahu Dessler, who famously says, and we've said this a lot, but you can't ever overemphasize the importance of this, that the word in Hebrew for love, ahav, is made up of the word hav, which means to give. So from a Jewish perspective, loving is really one can come to love through giving. When you want to really just give to a person, your whole life, that's very important. And that's the title of the class first comes love and then comes marriage. So obviously this is like a popular American saying. That's how Hollywood movies work. And obviously there has to be a really reasonable, strong connection to get to marriage. But we see in the Torah with Isaac, with Yitzchak and his wife Rivka, that the Torah says that they married each other and then he loved her. First came marriage and then came love. And I believe the reason for that, and again, we're not suggesting that you should just hop into a marriage, with no chemistry or no connection, no desire to give, etc. But the idea is that the more they were married, so obviously one of the awesome things about being married is you just have this constant way and avenue to give to a person that you cherish and you love. And the more that you give to them, the more you love them. So that was this idea that first they got married, and then through that marriage, the love only increased, which I think is a beautiful concept that it shouldn't be the opposite. Like again, in Hollywood, it's like this intense, lustful, a period where the guy and the girl connect, and then he messes up, and then they figure it out, and then the movie ends. But really, so you get married, and then that's where it really starts. That's like where the love starts.
Yeah. And that can be hard to imagine, but it's so cool. That's like the goodness and this gift that God gave us, and that can be. So yeah, it's cool. Okay. So just another idea about love, just to kind of like keep in mind, is that if love is dependent on something, right? Like if you love someone because of their beauty or their money or their popularity, whatever it is, as soon as that thing, and maybe this is obvious, but as soon as that thing disappears, the love disappears. So that's just very dangerous to get into that. And love is so much deeper.
You should never love someone, because of or on condition for something, or right? Because as soon as that goes away, then the love goes away. That's a mission in Pirkei Avos, and I would say the same is true. As like a person should never like marry someone on condition that they change, because maybe they won't change, and then you marry them. You should marry them because you're good with where they are right now. And obviously we always want to grow, but it's just not a wise move to marry someone with the hopes of the potential that they show.
Yes.
That's just not wise.
Yeah. Right. Totally. Yeah. So one definition I'd say of love, maybe this is a definition, I don't know, tell me what you think, but I love this idea, is learning, maybe this is a process of coming to love someone, learning to get a thrill out of seeing each other happy. And I think that idea just really reflects the giving, like you talked about, that, and I'm actually going to just pause for just 1 second here, because we're talking so much about giving. And this is one of my favorite topics to teach about. Another favorite topic, it's all really connected, is about giving and receiving. And in order for someone to be able to give, you're like, oh, yeah, of course. In order for someone to be able to give, there has to be someone to receive it. So if you're giving and you're not allowing the other person to give to you, that doesn't work, because both people have to be giving. In order to have a giver, there has to be a receiver. So hold on, we're going to come more to this in a second. But Levitan Heller says that there's like an 11th commandment in societies. She says it's don't let anyone take advantage of you, right? Never give so much that you're taken advantage of your skills, your whatever it is. And it's interesting because in a marriage, we don't have this. Love is actually spiritual. It's not just physical. This is like a spiritual love. And spiritual things don't work the same way as physical things. They don't have those physical limitations. So, and then the same is true in giving money, like tzedakah or charity. So the more you give, the more you actually have, right? We see this with giving charity.
Which conveniently, again, our campaign is Sunday at noon until Monday at 8 p.m. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. I mean, that's all. Money comes and goes, right? I feel like we've said this before, but money comes and goes. The only money you really have forever is the money they've given. So too in love, right? Whatever you give to that person is a permanent bond between you. And it doesn't take away from anything that you have because it's spiritual. So we can give in a loving relationship without fear. And in order to do that, though, that also means that a person needs to reveal their own needs and to be vulnerable to receive, right? Like, and it's interesting to think of receiving as a vulnerable thing, but it's like, what do you give that friend for their birthday who has everything? Well, if they have everything, there's no vulnerability. There's nothing you can give to them. But when you see that someone needs something, they're saying like, I'm not perfect. I'm not whole. I'm not complete. There's something I'm lacking, and you have that thing that you can give me to help me. And that takes vulnerability, and that's so important in a healthy, trusting relationship, to be able to receive and to be able to communicate. Also, as a receiver, what are your needs? Because that's a big misconception is, oh, if he really cared, he would know which necklace I want for my birthday. Right? Because we walk past it in the mall, once a month, and I point it out. So clearly he knows, but like, that's not how it works. You have to communicate clearly. It's so important. And I feel like not communicating that clearly is a lack of vulnerability.
So you're saying it's very important for a person approaching, let's say, dating or marriage or whatever, to be very clear. Because again, there's a balance here. We said before, it's not like, because on one hand, like we define lust as like, do I want to take from this person? Whereas love is, do I want to give to this person? On the other hand, it seems like you really need to be clear on what your needs are, right?
Yeah.
Meaning, I have to be clear on what I'm looking for, what I'm lacking, what I can be filled up with on the receiving end, right? So that can help. Interesting. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So maybe that ties in. So when I do matchmaking, I meet with everybody who I work with one-on-one before setting them up, like everyone. And no matter how well I know them, and we have this conversation of what are you looking for? And we make a top 10 list of what they're looking for. And sometimes what we want isn't always what we need. So we talk about the need to be flexible with that list also, at least some of the things on that list. But yeah, it's so, you can't, it all starts inside. You have to know yourself. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to know where you're at. And then you can bring that to the relationship.
Right, which is why I think self-awareness and self-knowledge is like a prerequisite before a person can start like seriously dating.
Totally.
I've spoken to guys before who there's always the dilemma when people sometimes go study in yeshiva. They're at like marriageable age, and it's like, well, do I start like dating now, or do I wait? And each circumstance kind of varies, but as a general rule, it's like oftentimes that time in the yeshiva is where a person can really get to know themselves better.
Yeah.
So it's makes sense just logically to wait until you have that self-identity, that self-awareness of who you are, till you start looking for a life partner, as opposed to look for a life partner before you know who you are, because that's not so fair to your partner. They don't really know what they're getting into, and so I think that self-awareness is a critical point here.
Totally. So important. And I feel like we offer lots of opportunities if anyone needs help with self-awareness.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, so another just important caveat is also respect and how respect plays a role here. This is a really important piece to it. We actually learned this from the Parsha when Avram had the 3 guests, and like it was such a big deal. Yeah, he fed them and took care of them, but he walked them out. And that is considered greater than him. Like, he took care of all their physical needs, but that was like their inner essence. That was a spiritual thing that he gave them respect. And so too, we need to bring that into our relationships and to respect each other. And just like love is spiritual to I don't know where I'm going with this exactly and how this fits in, but it's so important. Like, we can't underestimate in a relationship respecting the other person. And there's so many ways that we can do this. And there's so many ways. I think what I was thinking is, like, there's things that are so normal in our society that we do that show lack of respect. And I mean, one example is, like, we could be so busy, right? If someone's in acts of service is their love language, we could be so busy taking care and doing acts of service that right when that spouse comes home, that significant other, then you just kind of like ignore them because like you're just too busy doing for them. And it's just to look at each other as a person and as a human being, and to see how look for ways. And there's something that like we talk about in our college classes, that like we go through ways to show respect and things that don't show respect. But I just think it's interesting to like contrast, because some of the things just seem so normal. But I don't know. Okay, anyways, going further. So how do we build this love? So one idea is that small expressions of unity, like, build the muscles for the love to grow. So like smiling at each other, giving attention, listening, showing joy and receiving from another person, that shows, that helps the love grow in small ways, and then it can continue to grow and move forward. Okay. Another idea is that, okay, what should I do first? Okay, so another definition of love is the ability to see and build on the good that exists within your spouse. That you're like, and this is also part of this idea, is if love is something different than infatuation, it's not like we just fall in love and then we just fall out of love. Love is a choice, and it's a constant process. And God created us that we want to see the good in ourselves, right? That's why, like, when we do something wrong, it's very common to rationalize, or because we want to see ourselves as good. And similarly, we want to find that good in others. So small ways that we look for that good in others are good looks, personality, being smart, talented, and those attract people to each other. But like real, true goodness is deeper than that, and that is what grows into the love. So if love comes from appreciating goodness in others, then that means that so too we can focus on seeing the good in others, and that will grow our love.
Right, and this, I mean, I assume you're referring to it specifically in this realm of like relationships and dating. But we do have a commandment in the Torah as well to love your fellow like you love yourself, which classically is very difficult to do. Some people, it's hard to, like, you don't like them, you know, so how are you supposed to love them like you love yourself? And I think the answer that's brought down is like you just said, to focus on their goodness. Everyone has good attributes. Everyone has good something. You know, maybe the person's a jerk, but maybe, you know, they take care of their aging parents, you know, like really amazingly, you know, and, you know, to focus on that, or to, you know, maybe they're really talented at something, and they put their talents to good use for the community, you know, so you can focus on that. But so I would say you could even apply this outside of the realm of, you know, dating. And just we have this basic mitzvah, the golden rule, to love your neighbor like you love yourself. Very hard, but by actively focusing on the good attributes of them, you're able to come to this, to fulfill this mitzvah.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. And that's like, a lot of these ideas are just so universal, that once we build that muscle in ourselves of being able to look at a person and look for that good, we can really apply that, and we can build that muscle by looking to apply it in so many different areas of our lives.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Like, what a different way to go through the world and go through life, is looking for the good in people instead of the opposite, right? Like, can you imagine, like, just the stress levels and the overall happiness that creates, that attitude? Yeah. I think it's cool. Okay, so then I just have a quote to tie us into the next section, which is really important. This is from the Rambam, who's quoting on Pirkei Avos, the Ethics of Our Fathers. And he says, there's 3 types of love. Love because of what one stands to benefit from the other, right? So that's more like the lustful type. Love of pleasure and love of virtue. Love of virtue, he says, is when 2 people desire the same valuable thing, the essentially good, and each one wishes to collaborate with the other in attaining that ideal for both of them. So he is now tying love into this idea of a shared value and of working together to create that, make that into a reality. And I think, when any sort of bonding, working together and right, whether it's a team you're bringing together, a community, or 2 people, whatever it is, and when you like work on something together to build something together, that brings you together also, because you have that shared mission, that shared value. So in this book, Hannah Levitan, she talks about, and this is some of you who have met with me for matchmaking, we've talked about this, right? There's the concentric circles. The inner circle is our values, and then is our goals, and then is our interests. And what's so important is sometimes we come to the table and we're like, okay, well, I want to spend my life traveling and skiing, and yeah, I go to work, but I also want to be eating good food, and we come like, okay, I want someone to do this with. That's very nice, but that's not going to get you anywhere. That's not going to get you that deep love at the end of the day. The ideal is to go to the inner part of the circle and see what your values are, right? Because if 2 people are in a relationship and they both have a shared goal to build a business together, if their values are different, they're going to clash. They're going to have very different ideas about how that business should be run, right? But when we share the values, then you can really connect on a deeper level and build together. And I think that's really the most important thing. And yeah.
That's an interesting point, right? So you're saying finding a spouse, it's more than just finding basically a travel partner, or even like a companion for life, meaning that's a nice aspect of it.
Like pets are for.
Right. But like, right, you're saying it's deeper. It goes deeper.
Yeah.
You have a shared value system, and together you're creating something together as partners.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's why I think this book is so cool. I'll hold it up again. This book is so awesome because once she establishes that you need to match in your values. So the book is questions, 10 essential questions to getting it right the first time. They're to help, and she has questions in here to help you define what are your values. And you can go through it, even if you're currently dating someone, you can go through it together and check and see what your values are and how they line up. And we have couples who we've been involved with, and they've done this, a number of couples actually, and I think it's just an awesome check-in, just like to really, oftentimes in dating, it's like scary to like get deeper, because what if they don't share my values? What if they think that's weird? And like, it's so easy to just stay on the surface and talk about the weather or what's going on or how was your day. But when we get deeper, that's the only way we can really get to know someone on that level and know if our values connect. And so, like, if you don't want to go deep with someone, then you could invest so much. This goes back into the dating. You could invest so much into a relationship. You go out so many times, and you can have this infatuation and this connection, and you think they have this great chemistry. But if you don't go deeper, now you've invested so much of your time and your energy into a relationship that you can't connect with on a deep level. So I urge you, maybe not on the first date. The first date is maybe more to get to that second date, because you're not going to really find anything out on the first date, because first impressions are just so, you never know. But to make sure that before too long, you are getting into those deeper things. And they say when a couple is going out and you don't have chemistry, do you remember I told you this before? It was like, this idea blew my mind. If a couple's going out for a while and they don't have chemistry, a check-in is, are you talking about meaningful things? Because if you're not connecting on that deeper way, there's like an angle of what chemistry is that you're not allowing into that relationship. Does that make sense? Like, if part of chemistry, yes, is beauty and personality, but is like values and your goodness and how you see the world and how you want to give to the world. If you're not allowing the other person to see that, then it's like I feel like the chemistry has no chance, because it's missing such an integral part of who you are.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I think when we kind of realized it was over the Friday night potato kugel, when we really got to talk and, realized we had the same values and goals. And
And that was like, that really solidified. Like until then, we were looking around the room to see, what guys were there. Could the one be there? And then, and then later came that conversation. And cool. So I just love this topic of dating and love and marriage. And I don't know if anyone, I want to tell you more resources also. But if anyone wants to talk to us one-on-one about it, we're here. We're available to help, to try to help, to do our part. Some amazing resources. I made a list of a few of my favorites. Okay, so there's this book, I Only Want to Get Married Once. There's Alana and Jamie Cowland, Cowland on Instagram. Highly recommend. And then there's a book called Head to Heart. Great book by Gila Manelson. There's so many good books. The River, the Cat and the Bird. Remember that book? I recently saw it quoted. We used to have that book. I lent it to someone, I think. If it was you, then you could just let me know. But I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Good book.
Great book. So there's so much more always to be learning and to grow, whatever stage a person is at. And I think the ideal at the end of the day is to, like why we're here, what's our purpose, is to become our best selves. And through relationships, it definitely gives us an added challenge that we're not just, living as comfortable a life possible and fulfilling ourselves with good food, and, that there's something deeper and there's something more meaningful. And it really, I think, just pushes us to be better.
Right. And I think it's also interesting that a lot of times people say that, people tend to, we get very serious of what we call the interpersonal mitzvos, what we call mitzvos ben adam lechavero, which is, how I interact with the outside world. Meaning there's the realm of between me and God, and there's the realm of how I interact with the outside world. And a lot of times, what I do in the outside world, I look one way, but inside my house is a different story. But some of the rabbis point out that, like, the real question is, what are you doing inside the house? And how are you conducting yourself inside the house? Because there's another topic which I think is very related to this. It's called Shalom Bias, which is about peace in the house, and different things that people need to always be working on. But one of which, just one practical tool, just to remember whether you're in a relationship or just in general. But it is to always just be kind of calm with people, and to not be raising your voice and yelling and angry. That we're meant, really what the goal, what the mission is to build a divine, is to build a dwelling place for God. That's really what this is all about. And that dwelling place for God needs to be a place of purity and serenity and tranquility and peace. And it can't be a place where there's like anger and friction. It has to be this perfect place for God to dwell and manifest his presence in this world. And it has to be a place of love and harmony, and not dissension and yelling. So I think it's just something to work on. I know everyone, it's something I guess that surprises me a little bit when I learn with grooms, when we talk about this, is like, to me, kind of rule number one that I tell guys is like, never, ever, ever, ever raise your voice, to your wife. And not everyone like grew up with that. Some people did not grow up like that. I'm blessed, that I did grow up like that. I didn't grow up hearing yelling, and so it comes natural, but some people aren't aware of that. But it's the type of thing that, you want to give to this person, you want to take care of this person. The last thing you ever want to do is to lower them and to shatter them, and you never want to, raise your voice at them, yell at them. You only want to treat them in the most loving, respectful way imaginable. So I think that's just one point, one other practical point for when you're in that relationship, something to remember, that, again, maybe it's not so intuitive. Maybe you grew up like that, maybe you didn't grow up like that, but it's something that our rabbis are very firm about, that never, ever, 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 ever yell. It's like very, very important.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to comment on something you said, building a dwelling place for God, that's actually like the parshas that we're in right now that we're talking about. But that can be done no matter how many people are in your home, whether it's just you, whether there's more. You have the ability to make your home, based on how you act, what you bring into your home, a dwelling place for God. And I think that's just a tremendous opportunity. There's something else I was going to comment on. I don't remember what. But I don't know.
And I did actually just have one totally kind of random fun fact, and then we'll maybe let you all a little early here tonight. But it's something I've actually written about, and it did not come natural or intuitively to me at all at first. But the relationship between a husband and a wife is something that's very sacred and private, and it's not something that necessarily needs to be like flaunted publicly to the entire world. So sometimes this comes up on anniversaries or birthdays, these kinds of things. And by the way, happy birthday to my mama tomorrow. Big shout. Also, while we're on the topic of shout outs, I did want to dedicate this class tonight to one of our dear regulars, to his grandfather who just passed away. His name was Chaim Ben Aaron, and his neshama should have an aliyah, and we're sorry for your loss. But the point I was just making was, yes, that the love is like a sacred, private thing that is just very special between husband and wife, and it doesn't necessarily need to be, nor should it be, shared and flaunted kind of for everyone to see. So I remember I was a big violator of this policy until I read a blog post about it from a Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg from Florida, who sensitized me to this. But I have very strong feelings, I will confess, for you, my wife. And I am a very talented writer. You should all check out wolfwisdom.com. I actually wrote a brilliant piece last week. I think I told you about it last week even. Did I? I forgot when I wrote it. It's about the awesomeness of having a garage. We have a garage now, and you can park 2 cars in there, and like it's life-changing. It's absolutely incredible. And yeah, I like writing. I like, I like writing mushy things, to express my feelings, to you. And I used to like writing that on Facebook. But then I realized like I could just write you a card also, and then not everyone necessarily needs to see that, like why,
Mm-hmm.
So there's, in general, like the affection between a husband, they should be affectionate to each other, but in the appropriate venues that reflects the holiness, of this relationship, in the privacy, of their home, and not for everyone to peer in on, and to see. So
yeah, actually,
totally random point, but
that was,
I feel like we're on the topic. While we're on the topic, I thought I would mention it.
That was really interesting. I have a little piece of paper here. I took notes on. I don't know where it is, but it was actually the same point that when something has more potential for holiness, there's oftentimes more boundaries that we put up around it. And I was thinking about that, and I was trying to think about why that might be. And it is a concept that, like, when something has so much potential in the positive, it has that equal amount of potential that could be used for the negative. So that's with people, that's with certain traits, that's with all kinds of things, right? So, so if something is so holy, then we have to be even more careful with it, because it also means that that potential for holiness could be used in the negative. So we have to be so careful to channel it in the correct way.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I think all these are just like more tidbits of Judaism that really, we can really apply them to our lives and to our relationships. And it just shows like this awesome wisdom that we have, that I just feel so fortunate. Especially like teaching college is really fun, because it's just a review for me of all these ideas that I think are just so beautiful and so helpful to live a great life. So I just feel so fortunate to get to talk about these things all the time, because there's just so much beauty in what we have. And I think like at the end of the day, that's like my number one goal, to give over. It's not like we're here to teach you everything you need to know, or, but like just to show you that there's so much to learn, and there's so much that's interesting, and there's more to learn, and where to go find it. And, like the pot is endless, and all we can do is just give you a taste of it. So hopefully the taste will be sweet, and you'll have a desire to keep learning and figure out what else is in the pot.
Beautiful. All right. That's it for tonight. Thank you for joining us. As we move towards Pesach, maybe we'll get into some Passover discussions in the coming weeks. But thank you for joining us. Stay tuned. I have an exciting campaign next week. We're going to go like live in person soon as well. So keep your eyes peeled on all of those fun things to come. Have a great night. Have a nice week. Take care.